I think a lot of people would be curious to know, like, how did I end up, how did you end up getting the Young Thug trial?
And so I said to you, is any of it hearsay? Is any of it being offered for the truth? And you said, no.
Welcome back to Civics for the People. Today we're talking with Judge Paige Whitaker of the Fulton County Superior Court, learning all about our court system. A lot of folks know that there's this big court building across the street from the government center.
The court system is a complicated system, and in fact, it's not even just one system.
What are the challenges of presiding over these cases and, what people call a broken criminal justice system?
I think that there are a lot of misperceptions about our justice system.
Have you ever had to give somebody life in life?
More often than you think. There are a lot of crimes where that's the only possible punishment.
Up next on the next episode of Civics for the People, I'm going to be here with Judge Paige Whitaker of Superior Court of Fulton County. It's going to be an amazing episode, so stay tuned. Welcome to Civics for the People. I'm Commissioner Mo Ivory, and we're back again for another wonderful episode where I'm teaching you about Fulton County government, taking you on the inside of what we do here at Fulton County, because as a citizen, you should know. You might know some things about the city that you think the county does, or the things that the county does that is actually what a city does. But after all of these episodes that I'm having with my wonderful guests, you're going to be more informed about how government works for you. And most important, how your money is being used, because that's really what you need to know. I'm really excited about my guest today because I'm a lawyer. I think a lot of you know that. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to dive into the law, to have a role in what's happening, especially in our court system, something that most people have to face on a day that doesn't end up being such a great day for them, or perhaps it ends up being a day where justice has prevailed. So I'm really excited to have with me today Judge Paige Whitaker from Superior Court, and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Commissioner Ivory, for giving me an opportunity to talk to our citizens.
Yeah, a lot of folks know that there's this big court building across the street from the government center, and there's a lot of court things going on in there, but they don't really know what the difference is between one court or the other court, or what actually a judge does. So from the bench, can you just really tell us what is the role of a Superior Court judge, and what do you do different from other judges that are over there?
Sure. So the court system is a complicated system, and in fact, it's not even just one system. And a lot of people who aren't lawyers don't know that. And so I think the court that most people are most familiar with, the one that you hear about in the news, is the United States Supreme Court. That is actually an entirely different court system than Superior Court of Fulton County. We have in our country, we have a federal system, and the United States Supreme Court is in that system. And we have a state system, and that's where the Fulton County Superior Court falls. So Superior Court is the highest level trial court in the state of Georgia. There are different judicial circuits. Georgia has 49 judicial circuits. Some of them, like Fulton County, are a single county makes up a circuit. That's true for a lot of the metro areas. Cobb is a single circuit. DeKalb's a single circuit.
So can people think of a circuit as a geographical place?
That's exactly what it is. So in the smaller areas, or the less populated areas of the state, you might have a circuit that is 5 or 6 different kind of neighboring counties. So it's kind of grouped together.
Okay.
Every circuit has got at least one Superior Court judge, but they may have many more depending upon how busy that bench is. So for instance, Fulton County has 20 Superior Court judges.
Wow.
We probably need 21 or 22, and we are about twice as big as the next biggest circuit. What we do on a day-to-day basis, I think the thing that most people would be most familiar with is either if you have a custody matter, a divorce matter, any kind of a family matter like that, that is handled only in Superior Court.
Okay.
Also, felony crimes. So things that are this serious can keep you in jail for more than a year type crimes, murders, armed robberies, things like that.
Okay.
If the district attorney's office decides to prosecute those cases, those come to Superior Court. The other things we do, and I can circle back on any of this, but the other things we do are the kind of bigger ticket civil cases, so a business suing another business,
Okay.
a personal injury car wreck, things like that. Those also come to Superior Court. And then equity cases where somebody is saying, I want you, the court, to either force somebody to do something or make somebody stop doing something.
Okay.
Don't foreclose on my house.
Okay.
Don't let my former employee work for the competitor. Things like that would come to us as well.
Okay.
And
Are those mostly contractual, like things that fall apart based on a contract?
sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. I
Okay.
mean, we can also do something like keep the polls open. It's sleeted and we couldn't get to the polls by 7 o'clock. That's something that is asking a court to either force somebody to do something or stop somebody from
Like
doing
in an
something.
emergency, like take immediate action.
Yes.
Like on election day, if, like the lights went out for an hour and they'll
Right.
come to you immediately and say, keep the polls open for
Exactly.
another hour.
And
Okay.
that can only come to Superior Court. It can't come.
Superior Court.
So Fulton County has state court. State court handles the misdemeanors, the kind of less serious criminal cases. And they can also handle contract disputes, but they cannot do things like divorce, custody, child support. They can't force them to do something, stop them from doing something, like a temporary protective order if you are worried that somebody is endangering your safety.
Okay.
Something like that would come to us. We also have magistrate court. Those are small claims court, landlord-tenant court. The difference between magistrate court and us, or one of the biggest differences, is they cannot do jury trials.
Oh,
So state and Superior Court do jury trials.
Okay.
That's where 12 in Superior Court, you can do 6 in state court. Fulton citizens get called in and they help decide a case.
right. So if you're getting a call, I think a lot of citizens will want to know this. If you're getting a notice that you have to serve jury duty, you're most likely going to serve in Superior Court or state court because there's no juries in magistrate court.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's if you're in the state system. Now, you
Okay.
also, I mentioned that there's a federal system as well. They also have trial courts. So if you live in Fulton County and you get a summons for jury service, but it's not Fulton County, it would be the Northern District of Georgia, and that's federal court. And they do trials over there for things that are either federal constitutional violations or federal crimes, robbing a post office,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. So,
I know the question.
that's interesting. So, how do judges get assigned to the cases? I mean, like, is it random? Like, how does that happen?
It is a random assignment, so what we have, and it's done, I'm sure, by computers these days. We don't have a fishbowl that we pull a name out of, but it is, we categorize the cases. So if it's a civil case that goes on what we call a wheel, one sort of pot of choose this judge and then the next judge randomly. And then we have complex criminal cases. So if it has more than 4 defendants that are all grouped in that case, that's one group of cases. We haven't had a death penalty case in a long time, but death penalty is an entirely separate pot that a case would go in. And then you can, however the system works, it randomly assigns, and no one judge is going to get more than, 3 cases before every other judge gets at least one. And so it evens out, and it's definitely random. If you get a case that you are, for some reason, personally involved in, or you believe that you would not be able to be impartial in, then you, what we call, recuse yourself.
Yeah.
You say, I can't handle this case, give me a different one instead. And that's, in fact, how I got the Young Thug case, ultimately. And it happens, occasionally. It's not that typical, but if that happens, if a judge says, I can't be impartial in this case for whatever reason, then it goes back to another random assignment, and that's how we end up with our cases.
Very interesting. We're talking to Judge Paige Whitaker of Superior Court here in Fulton County, and she was the judge for the Young Thug trial, and so there was a recusal, and then there was another judge assigned, and then that judge stepped away,
Right.
and then you became the judge. And, when that came to you that, you were up next in line for that case, and you were just talking about how some judges will say, personally, I don't want to do that or whatever. Was there any part of you that ever was like, this case is such a mess, like, it's so long, it seems so expensive, like, I don't want, maybe I should think about this?
I think I'm not going to talk about particular cases right now because
Sure.
there are some aspects of that case that
Still going on?
are still ongoing.
Okay.
But for any case, I mean, there might be times when you just think, okay, wow, that is going to be really complicated, or that's going to get a lot of press, or that's going to get a lot of criticism no matter what you do. But at the same time, that's what we're elected to do. That's what we chose to do. And, when I'm looking at a case, what I most want out of it is for the people that are in front of me to feel like they got heard, they got a chance to say whatever they needed to say. And
Have a fair trial.
yes, exactly.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's kind of what it comes
Right.
down to.
Absolutely.
And that the law got applied fairly.
Right,
So.
right. You've had a long career in public service. What made you decide to go from being a prosecutor to a judge?
Well, I started my career in the state attorney general's office, and then after about probably 14 years or so, I moved over to the Fulton DA's office, and I was a deputy district attorney for 7 years there. And I think that when you are in court as much as you're in court when you're a prosecutor, for example, you just start to think, and you also start to see people move into judgeships,
Yeah.
and you're advancing in your career. I'd been a lawyer for 25 years practicing before I became a judge. And, you just start to think, hey, you know what? That's a different aspect of the same thing I've been involved
Sure.
in. I think I might be good at that. And I hope I am good at it. But,
Yeah.
I'm going to try that out for a little while.
I mean, it's directly related, right? You take your skill sets from practicing for 25 years and you bring them into another arena. And so, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. What's the biggest challenge over presiding over a case and the climate that we are in, and even not necessarily just what's happening right now, but just what are the challenges of presiding over these cases and, what people call a broken criminal justice system?
I think that there are a lot of misperceptions about our justice system. I think, people talk a lot of times without knowing the facts of a case. And without knowing the law. And there are times as a judge that the law requires you to make a decision that if you were just, the man on the street, hey, do you think this is what should happen? That might not be the conclusion you came to, but our legislators, our lawmakers make the laws, and until those laws change, we as judges are required to implement them. And so sometimes what you decide as a judge is not what you might want to decide, but it's what you take an oath to the Constitution and to our laws, and you're bound to decide. So,
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you can remember that you just wanted to you felt maybe like somebody didn't feel like they were receiving a fair process, or that there was, a sort of feeling in the courtroom or whatever, that you jumped in and you said, no, like, I want to hear this, or no, like, what do you do just as a mom, as a human, sort of to ensure that in your courtroom people feel like they're getting a fair trial?
So that's interesting that you say as a mom, because when I first took the bench in 2017, I had teenage boys, and unfortunately, sometimes more often than you would want, teenage boys are the people in front of me accused of having committed crimes. And there were many times, especially at the beginning of my judgeship, when I thought, there but for the grace of God go one of my kids. And, so you have this empathy for people because honestly, they're all just people
Right.
in the world, hopefully trying to do the best they can. And sometimes they haven't had the right kind of guidance,
Yeah.
or they've gotten in with the wrong crowd. And that's easy enough for anybody to make that kind of mistake. And one thing that I think has been nice in the last, say, 10 years or so, maybe longer, is the idea of accountability courts and alternative ways to handle things where it might be just a mistake and not, this is a callous, cold-hearted, evil person who's never going to be any better.
Right.
So, I like to look for opportunities to do something other than throw away the key.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people just watch judges and watch the news and just hear the verdict and the sentencing, and they don't think about like the person that was, you, the judge, of what you were doing or what your thought was into doing that. They just hear it. And so, I know it's got to be a hard thing for you to, have you ever had to give somebody life in life?
More often than you think. There are a lot of crimes where that's the only possible punishment if they're convicted by a jury. So, yeah,
Wow.
that happens
I
pretty
know-
often.
Yeah, wow. I know that's got to be a hard
Yeah.
thing. Obviously not if maybe also it isn't hard
Well, I
sometimes,
mean, at the same
right? Like at the
time,
same time, if somebody
we
murders
wanna-
somebody and right,
We
and
want a
you-
safe community.
Right,
So,
exactly.
it's two sides of the
yeah,
same
it's
coin.
two sides.
Really.
It's a very hard thing. This is Civics for the People. It's Commissioner Mo Ivory. We're talking to Judge Paige Whitaker of Superior Court so that you can understand what the courts are doing, what the judges are thinking. And I'm so delighted that she's here with me today. Can you tell me something that you're really proud of as a judge?
As a judge, I'm thinking, well, I'm really proud of my boys.
Right.
But as a judge, I think that on a daily basis, I'll tell you something that I'm proud of is when I do cases that involve families, divorces, where they wouldn't be in front of us if they could have worked it out on their own, where kids are involved. I am proud of wanting to take the time and taking the time to listen to both sides, hear what they have to say, hear from other people, hear about the kids, and we are actually required to do what is in the best interest of the kids.
Sure.
And that's absolutely what we ought to be doing. And there have been times when going through the court process has actually helped one or the other parent to realize, you know what, I've been looking at this the wrong way.
Maybe like a light bulb goes off.
And yeah, I need to change my focus, not focus on
The other person, but the
what
kids.
fell apart with a
Yeah.
marriage or with a relationship, but focus on what'll be best going forward for our shared kids. So that is actually one of the, I hate to say it, but rare times as a judge when there's so much conflict that you can come away and say, yeah, I did good today.
Oh, that's really
I
good.
helped people today.
Yeah, because you help the kids, because
Yeah.
they have to have those parents, right? What are some of the most significant challenges that you think the court faces, and that, that do you believe maybe technology could help it, or like what are some of the challenges courts face?
The influx of cases. I mean, I wish that we could put ourselves out of business, but unfortunately, and fortunately, people get in disputes all the time, and the court system gives people a way to either hold people accountable or solve disputes in a way that is not just digging it out on the street. So it's good that we still believe in our court system as a way to be able to, civilly speaking, in a calm way, applying rationality, be able to solve disputes.
Yeah, so it's the greater the fact that cases are just growing and growing and growing. And that's why I think earlier you said that even though Fulton County has the most judges at 20, you really need 22. I heard that little
We
plug
really
right
do.
there. And
That's right.
I am on the commission, so I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, and I think that most justice partners feel that they're underfunded and that they need more help, you know. It's just a constant conversation, right? And I certainly agree that, you know, when the resources are not there, then, you know, people will suffer and wait. And there's, you know, an effect that goes along with that. So I hear that very much. We're talking to Judge Paige Whitaker from Superior Court. And what is the one thing, my last question, what is the one thing that you wish the general public understood better about the role of a judge?
Well, I think I kind of touched on it before. I would like for the general public to understand that we are doing the best we can, and we are not making decisions because we like one side over the other, or because of partisan issues. I mean, we are nonpartisan. We are required to not take positions on anything controversial in public unless and until it comes before us as a case, and that we are trying to just follow the law.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. One last question. I said that was the last question, but I want to have one last question. So what do you do for fun? What do you do to relax and get away from the bench? And what does that look like?
Well, before I was a lawyer, I used to read a lot, but
Okay.
honestly, I read
You
so
do a
much in my job
Of
now
course.
that I pass on that.
Yeah.
You know, just being outside in our beautiful county and enjoying nature. That's what I like to do.
Well, that's wonderful. How can people, if they want to learn more about the Superior Court, or they need to check on something, or is there a website they can go to?
There is a website, and each of the individual judges has a page on the website, so you can find out specific rules that might apply to their court. And I welcome anybody. You know, our courts are public and they're open. If we're in session, which is pretty much all the time from 8:30 to 5 every day, anybody is welcome to come down and watch what's going on, because it's your government and it's your court system, and we'd love to have you come find out more about it.
Oh, well, Judge Whitaker, thank you so much for joining us here on Civics for the People. And I hope that you learned something about our court system, especially about Superior Court, and even the information about just what all the different courts do. But you can always find out more information by going to my website or going to the court's website, like Judge Whitaker just told you. So thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Civics for the People, and we'll see you next time.